I honestly believe that if we don't take advantage of the fact that now it's so easy to listen to recordings of the pieces that we like to learn, we're seriously missing a trick. In fact, I think we're missing 3 different tricks that I'd like to cover off in this video. If you're sitting comfortably, then let's begin. Now, the first reason I think we should listen to recordings is so that we can hear what a piece can sound like. Now, note I say can and not should, because of course we can quite often listen to pieces that are interpreted in a way that we don't like them, but that doesn't necessarily make that wrong. And strangely, in his book, The Art of Piano Playing, Heinrich Neuhaus makes the point that he thinks that recordings could one day get rid of the need for teachers altogether. Now, that might seem a little extreme, but the way he put it was, if you can get a recording of Rachmaninoff playing his own music, then what on earth can he, Neuhaus as a teacher, actually add to that recording? Not very much. So an interesting perspective. In fact, in his book, he even went on further to say that he was delighted that many world-class pianists were starting to record more sort of accessible repertoire. Indeed, he even went on to say that he wished that more great pianists would start to record the pedagogical repertoire, as he puts it, so that we can learn what great pianists can actually do with a piece. Perhaps my favourite example of this is Horowitz playing the famous Traumerei, and hearing the way he brings out those inner lines is truly fascinating. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should necessarily try to mimic what he does, if we even could, but at least trying to bring out the things that he brings out is a very interesting way to try and make our fingers more independent in the context of a piece of music. In any event, we all know what Picasso once said, that good artists borrow, but great artists steal. Now, the second reason I think we should regularly listen to recordings is to make sure we're actually playing the right notes. Now, bear with me a sec, you might think, no, surely we should just be following the score. However, I was fascinated. I attended a masterclass given at my local Philharmonic Hall, and there were 4 young pianists, each of them amazingly talented, and they brought different pieces to this masterclass. And for each one of them, the pianist giving the masterclass actually pointed out places where they were playing wrong notes. And oddly, these weren't mistakes in that they were accidentally playing wrong notes, they'd actually learned wrong notes. And they'd obviously played these pieces for their teachers on multiple occasions, and even the teachers hadn't noticed that they learned wrong notes as part of the process. Now, I used to think it was just me being stupid. However, of course, if 4 young gifted students can make this kind of mistake, then I'm sure lots of us are doing it. Now, the third reason is all around tempo. Now, I'm not a great fan of a metronome, and to be honest, with a lot of the music I like to try to learn, so Chopin, Rachmaninoff, Debussy, then in actual fact, the metronome's not so helpful, I find, because of course the piece isn't made to be played through at a steady tempo. Different sections, even within one Chopin waltz, different sections can have different tempi applied to them, and of course there's lots of rubato and other expression in a piece. And it's for this reason I think we need to start to develop this sort of internal sense of pulse for how a piece needs to be played. However, that said, I have noticed that, especially if I'm trying to focus on resolving technical problems within a piece of music, that I might have a tendency to either rush it or slow it down without really realizing I've done this. And a very simple way I've found to be able to keep track of whether or not we're trying to rush or slow something down too much is if we take note of how long it takes our favourite pianists to play a piece of music end to end, then we can keep this as a sort of benchmark. And if we regularly record ourselves as we're practicing, we'll be able to see if we're playing it more or less at the same kind of length as they are. So if it takes them 5 minutes to play something, do we play it in 6 or do we play it in 4? And in fact, I've been surprised that even in shorter pieces, so something that's 5 or 6 minutes long, sometimes I am playing something a whole minute faster than a recording that I think is beautiful. And of course, we can even take this a step further and break the timing down section by section, as I talked about in one of my very early videos here. Now here's for my unexpected little power tip. One thing that I've found can be extremely helpful is trying to play along to one of our favourite recordings. Now, of course, when we're trying to play along to a great pianist, we don't need to necessarily worry about getting every note perfect. That's not the aim of the game. And we might choose to just play one hand rather than both. But what we can do is we get a good idea of the pulse that they use. We can straight away feel whether something feels faster than we might play it or slower than we might play it. We also get to experience the rubato that they use, because I've noticed that quite often great pianists will dare to use far more rubato than I would dare to use, but then conversely, in other pieces, they will stick far more to the tempo than I would tend to do. So it can be a very useful acid test. Now, I actually recommended doing this in my tutorial of Beethoven's Adagio from the Pathetic Sonata. And the reason I recommended it is because I've always found that with that piece, I sort of tend to feel it slightly faster than most pianists would play it, and therefore it's a good idea to try and slow myself down in real time, as it were. Now, of course, I'm not saying that we should be trying to mimic pieces, as I said earlier. That's not the idea. But when we get to hear what great pianists can actually do with something, then I think there's an awful lot that we can learn from that. I hope you found these tips useful, and I've linked my tutorial on the Adagio here for you if that's something you've not learned yet. And if you're not already, then please do subscribe to Tommy's Piano Corner. Don't forget to click that little bell icon so you're notified of new videos as and when they're released. I thank you very much for watching today and look forward to seeing you very soon.